A 13-year-old girl walked home in her hoodie, minding her business, until a cop slammed her to the pavement and broke her arm. What he didn't know: her father was a world champion fighter with nothing left to prove, except that his daughter mattered. It happened on a Tuesday, late afternoon, the kind of day when your legs are sore, your mind's floating, and all you can think about is water and dinner. 13-year-old Tiana Caldwell had just left track practice at Stanton Middle School in Modesto, California. Her earbuds were in, backpack snug against her back. She took the shortcut, like she always did, through Madison Street, a stretch of sidewalk lined with broken fences and sun-bleached lawns. She wore her favorite green hoodie, the one her dad gave her last Christmas. Oversized. Faded a bit, but it made her feel comfortable. Invisible, in a way. But that day, it did the opposite. A white Ford Explorer slowed behind her. Tinted windows, police decal. She didn't turn around at first, but when it crawled to a stop right at the corner, she finally paused and looked over her shoulder. The officer got out. He wasn't in a rush. No lights, no sirens. Just that slow, chest-out walk that made people tense up even when they weren't doing anything wrong. "Hey, you," he said. "Come here a second." Tiana took out one earbud. "Me? You see anyone else out here?" His voice wasn't yelling, but it had that tone, like he was already annoyed, already suspicious. She walked over slowly, confused but calm. "I'm just going home from practice. You live around here?" "Yeah. What's your name?" She told him. Then he asked what she was doing, why she was in that hoodie, where she was headed, if she had ID. She kept answering, softly, trying to stay polite. She didn't know the rules, not really, just what her dad had told her. Stay calm, don't argue, and don't make sudden moves. He didn't listen. Or maybe he just didn't care. Without warning, Officer Brett Halverson reached for her wrist. "Wait," she said, startled. "I said turn around! I didn't do anything!" In seconds, she was being twisted around. Her backpack yanked. Her feet slipped on the edge of the curb. She tried to brace herself with her right arm as he pulled it behind her. Then she screamed, a high, tearing sound that made two people across the street stop walking and pull out their phones. One woman shouted, "She's a kid! What are you doing?" Halverson didn't respond. He had one knee on her back now, pressing her down. The sidewalk scratched her cheek. She couldn't move her right arm. It dangled, limp and burning. Tiana tried to lift her head, crying, shaking, trying to understand what was happening. "I told her to stop resisting," he barked, not even looking at the people filming. But she hadn't fought him. She hadn't run. She just hadn't moved fast enough for him. By the time another unit arrived, Tiana was lying on the ground, sobbing, her right arm swelling fast under the sleeve. Her hoodie sleeve had torn open. She was bleeding from the elbow. An older officer walked over, took one look at her, and cursed under his breath, then told Brett to back off. The woman filming stepped forward. "I got it all. She never touched him." Tiana was still crying when they put her in the ambulance. A medic asked her name again. She answered between breaths. "Tiana Caldwell." And that name, that last name, would be the one that made everything change. But what started as a routine stop would shake an entire community by nightfall. The lights in the ER were too bright. Everything smelled like plastic and bleach. Tiana lay on the narrow hospital bed, her face blotchy from crying, arm elevated and wrapped in layers of gauze and foam. The break was clean but nasty, just above the elbow. A spiral fracture, the doctor said. The kind that twists when someone yanks too hard. Her mother, Tiana Monroe, sat beside her, lips pressed tight, one hand gently rubbing Tiana's leg through the blanket. She hadn't said much since they arrived, only what was necessary for the nurses. Her silence wasn't from shock. It was from rage. It sat in her chest like a brick, heavy and unmoving. Every so often, she would look down at her daughter's swollen arm, then glance toward the door as if expecting someone, and then he walked in. Not a knock, not an announcement, just the door opening and Donovan Monroe stepping in, quiet and straight-backed, the way he always entered a room. He was tall, broad, and unmistakably calm. Calm in the way that made people nervous. His jaw was tight. His eyes didn't wander. They went straight to the cast. Tiana saw him and tried to sit up. "Dad!" He moved quickly to her, not saying a word. He took her hand gently, her good hand, and kissed her forehead. "What happened?" His voice was deep and steady. Kendra began, but stopped. She exhaled and stood. "They said she resisted. Some cop said she looked suspicious. He broke her damn arm, Don." Tiana's eyes filled again, but she bit her lip. Her dad was here now. That meant things were going to shift. He looked at her again. "Did you resist?" "No," she whispered. "Did you touch him?" "No." "Did he say why he stopped you?" She shook her head. "Just asked where I was going. Then he grabbed me." Donovan leaned forward. His voice was low. "I want you to remember every detail. We're going to write it down tonight, okay?" She nodded. A tear slid down her cheek. He wiped it with his thumb. He stood up slowly and turned to Kendra. "Who was the officer?" She handed him the intake paper. "Brett Halverson, Modesto PD. Badge numbers on the report." Donovan read it once, then folded it neatly and slipped it into his coat pocket. "Is there footage?" he asked. Kendra nodded. "2 people filmed it. I've already got 1 clip. It's going around." He didn't say anything for a few seconds, just stood there, his fists at his sides. "I'll talk to the chief," he finally said. Kendra looked at him. "You sure you don't want to call a lawyer first?" "Oh, I'll call one, but I'm going to see him in person. They need to look me in the eye when I tell them what's coming." The way he said it, calm, cold, clear, Kendra felt a shiver. Not fear, not concern, just the deep knowing that something had just shifted in her husband. He had been out of the fight game for years, left the spotlight, opened a gym for kids, stayed quiet, did interviews now and then, taught teenagers how to throw a punch without losing control. But this wasn't about control anymore. This was about his daughter, back in the bed. Tiana watched him. "Are you mad at me?" His eyes softened for the first time. "No, baby. I'm mad for you," she sniffled. "I didn't do anything wrong." He knelt again and whispered, "I know. And I'm going to make sure everyone else knows too." Then the door opened again. Just a nurse this time. But Donovan was already up, already pulling out his phone. There were calls to make. Not to friends, to reporters, to lawyers, to people who owed him favors. People who remembered what he'd done in the octagon. People who remembered who he was before he disappeared from the cameras. He wasn't coming back to fight in the ring. He was coming back to finish something outside of it. But Donovan Caldwell wasn't the type of man to scream. He made impact in quieter ways. Before Donovan Monroe was a father, before he taught self-defense to teenagers in a strip mall gym off Crowell Road, he was the technician. That was the name the fight world gave him. Not because he punched harder than everyone else, though he could, but because he was surgical, precise, calm under pressure, the kind of fighter who didn't waste a single movement. He was born in Stockton, California, raised by his grandfather, a retired army mechanic who believed in 3 things: order, discipline, and always leaving your shoes by the door. Donovan soaked it all in. When he was 14, he found a boxing gym across town and never looked back. By 24, he was a world champion in mixed martial arts. Interviews, magazines, endorsements. But he never liked the spotlight. Fame didn't change him. It made him quieter, more distant. While other fighters partied, he studied tapes. When others bragged, he listened. That's why he lasted longer than most. But after his 3rd title defense, he walked away. No ceremony, no press tour. He left the gloves on the mat, packed a bag, and disappeared. Just like that. He married Kendra 2 years later, opened a gym in Modesto, started working with kids who were one bad decision from a worse life. No cameras, no lights, just sweat, discipline, and second chances. Word spread fast about his coaching. Parents brought their sons to him. Teachers referred students. The police department, ironically, had even sent a few troubled teens to his gym under juvenile agreements. He never turned anyone away. He had rules, though. No swearing, no bravado. If you got caught fighting in school, you were out. If you lied, you did laps. He taught his kids to look people in the eye, to never throw a punch unless it was the only option left. But now his own daughter had come home hurt, by a man with a badge. And that badge gave him permission to use force without consequence. That didn't sit right with Donovan. Not as a father, not as a fighter, not as a man. The next morning, he stood alone in the gym, watching the sun creep through the high windows. He was tying up the ring ropes when Terence Jones, one of his longtime students, walked in early. "Coach, I heard about Tiana. Is she okay?" Donovan nodded once. "She's resting. Man, that video's everywhere. My sister sent it to me last night. That cop messed her up bad." Donovan said nothing at first, just kept adjusting the ropes. "You gonna do something?" Terence asked. Donovan looked at him. "What do you think?" Terence half smiled. "I think he's in trouble." But Donovan didn't smile back. "No, we're in trouble. All of us. If people think they can do that to a kid on a sidewalk and walk away like nothing happened, then it's not just my fight." Terence lowered his eyes. "Yeah." That afternoon, Donovan called a friend in local media, Nicolette Grady, a freelance journalist who used to train at his gym years ago. She was working on stories that never made the evening news. Donovan trusted her. He didn't trust many. When she picked up, she sounded surprised. "Donovan Monroe? I haven't heard that voice in 10 years. "I need a favor," he said. "You still have your camera?" "Always." "What's going on?" "I'm holding a press conference. Tomorrow, my gym, noon. I want you to film it." Nicolette paused. "Press conference for what?" "For a cop who broke my daughter's arm and thought no one would care." Silence on the other end. Then, "I'll be there." Donovan hung up and stared at the wall of black and white photos in the gym office. Fighters he had trained. Kids who had grown up. Some of them had jobs now. Some had families. Some were still finding their way. But all of them had learned one thing from him. When someone comes at you, you don't run. You respond. But now his own daughter was the one who'd been hurt. And that changed everything. By the time Donovan arrived at the Modesto Police Department the next morning, the receptionist already knew his name. "Mr. Monroe, Chief Arliss is expecting you," she said, standing a little too quickly, like she'd rehearsed the line. He followed her past a row of desks, into a side office with dark carpet and fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. Chief Harold Arliss, a man in his late 50s with a drooping mustache and a stomach that didn't quite fit his belt, stood to shake his hand. "Donovan," the chief began, offering a stiff smile. "Listen, I just want to say—" "I'm not here for sympathy," Donovan interrupted. "I'm here for answers." The chief's smile faded. "Of course." They sat. A detective joined them, laptop already open. The room smelled like stale coffee and old paper. "I'd like to see the body cam footage," Donovan said. Chief Arliss shifted. "It's part of an internal review, and—" Donovan leaned forward. "Don't waste my time. I already have 2 cell phone videos. I want to see what your officer recorded." The detective hesitated, then turned the laptop toward him and hit play. The footage began with static, then a shot of Officer Brett Halverson adjusting the camera on his chest. Timestamp 4:26 p.m. Madison Street. Tiana entered the frame, walking, earbuds in, backpack tight. Halverson called to her. She looked over, walked toward him. Donovan watched in silence as the questions began, each one more accusatory than the last. Tiana answered clearly, calmly. She never raised her voice. She never walked away. Then, without warning, Halverson reached out, grabbed her wrist, and yanked her arm behind her. Her scream sliced through the speakers. Then came the snap. Donovan's jaw clenched. He didn't blink. He watched the officer press his knee into his daughter's back, heard the words, "Stop resisting," watched her face twisted in pain. The detective paused the footage. "That's enough," Donovan said quietly. The room stayed silent. Chief Arliss cleared his throat. "The incident is under review. Officer Halverson claimed she pulled away. She didn't. I understand that's how it appears. She didn't, Donovan repeated, this time louder. I want him off the street. Today. Arliss sighed. We've placed him on administrative leave while we investigate. We have to follow protocol. Donovan stood up. Your protocol let a man put a child in the hospital. That's your system. He didn't wait for a response. He left the office, walked down the hall, and out into the heat. Outside, he sat in his truck for a long minute. No music, no air conditioning, just the echo of Tiana's scream. He pulled out his phone and dialed Nicolette. You ready for the footage? He asked. You got it? I need it seen. That night, Nicolette uploaded a side-by-side comparison, the body cam footage and one of the cell phone videos. No voiceover, just the raw clip, overlaid with one sentence in white block text. This is how you treat a 13-year-old girl. By morning, it had over 200,000 views. Twitter lit up. People started asking questions. Parents in Modesto began demanding accountability. Emails poured into the police department. Halverson's name was trending. At the breakfast table, Tiana scrolled through the comments on her phone. Some were supportive. Some were cruel. She put the phone down. Donovan sat beside her. Do you want me to stop? He asked. She shook her head. No. He looked at her. Then we don't stop. That afternoon, Donovan began calling parents of the kids he trained. Former students, teachers, past clients. He wasn't organizing a protest. He was organizing witnesses. People who had seen the effects of quiet injustice, who had stories, who needed a place to speak. He called it a community meeting. But in his mind, it was something else. It was the beginning of a fight. But watching a screen wasn't going to be enough. Donovan needed to make people feel what he felt. By noon the next day, the gym was packed. Not with students, not with fighters, but with folding chairs, cameras, boom mics, and tension so thick it felt like someone had laid it across the floor like padding. Local news vans lined the street. Former students stood shoulder to shoulder in the back. Parents sat up front. Some still wore their work uniforms. Some held their kids' hands. At the center of it all was Tiana Monroe, standing alone in the ring he hadn't fought in for a decade. He wore a black polo. No logos, no expression. Nicolette stood just off to the side, camera rolling, eyes sharp. He didn't clear his throat. Didn't ask for attention. He just started talking. My daughter's name is Tiana Monroe. She's 13 years old. And 2 days ago, on her way home from practice, she was stopped, thrown to the ground, and had her arm broken by a police officer who thought her hoodie made her dangerous. He looked straight into the lens. She didn't resist. She didn't run. She answered every question. And she still ended up in a hospital bed, crying because someone with a badge decided she looked like a threat. The room was quiet. No flashes. No coughs. Just the weight of his words pressing against everyone's ribs. I've spent the last 15 years teaching kids how to handle themselves, how to stay calm, how to avoid violence. I thought I was doing the right thing. But now I have to ask myself, what good is teaching restraint when the people in power have none? He paused. Let it sit. Officer Brett Halverson lied in his report. He claimed she pulled away. He claimed she was confrontational. He claimed he had no choice. Donovan held up a small flash drive. This is the body cam footage. I've given copies to multiple journalists. You can watch it right now if you want. Everything he said? A lie. The silence turned into murmurs. Phones came out. People began searching the footage in real time. I'm not here to tear down every cop. I'm not here to scream for revenge. I'm here because my daughter is scared to go outside, because she flinches when someone walks behind her now, and because if we let this go, then we're telling our kids that their pain doesn't matter. Donovan stepped forward. I didn't raise my daughter to live in fear, and I sure as hell didn't teach her to be silent. He stepped down from the ring. Neither should you. The room erupted, not in noise, but in motion. People stood. Some clapped. Others walked up and hugged him. A father held up his phone showing the video already playing on YouTube. A reporter from KMOD 11 pushed through. Mr. Monroe, do you plan to press charges? Donovan didn't even look at her. I plan to make sure that man never puts a hand on another child again. Later, outside the gym, Cameras followed him to his car. He didn't stop. He wasn't there for interviews. He'd already said what he needed to say. At home, Tiana sat on the couch with her arms still in the sling, watching the live stream. Kendra sat beside her. Why didn't he ever talk like that when he was fighting? Tiana asked. Kendra smiled faintly. Because back then, he didn't have anything to prove. Donovan came home a few hours later, walked past the cameras waiting outside, said nothing, just kissed Tiana's head, took off his shoes, and sat down in the living room. No more cameras, no press, just his family. That night, the video of his speech hit 500,000 views. Officer Brett Halverson was placed on indefinite administrative leave. The mayor released a statement. The police department launched a full internal review. But to Donovan, none of that meant anything. Not yet, because going public was just round one, and Donovan never lost a fight he took personally. Modesto wasn't the kind of place where things usually changed quickly. People stuck to what they knew: church on Sundays, high school football, yard sales, old neighbors. But in the days after Donovan's press conference, something cracked. It started with the students. Tiana's classmates, some who barely knew her, started showing up to school in hoodies. Green ones. Some wrote her name on masking tape and stuck it to their sleeves. One group made signs and stood outside the main office before first period. They weren't yelling. They just stood there. She could have been any of us. 13 is not a threat. The school called it a disruption. Parents called it a message. That week, Kendra began receiving emails from teachers she'd never met. They wanted to check on Tiana. Some told her about how their own students were opening up for the first time about similar experiences. One teacher at Bennett High confessed that her nephew had been stopped 5 times in 1 year for walking home after practice. At Donovan's gym, attendance doubled. Kids brought their friends. Parents lingered longer after dropping them off. One father, a mechanic named Victor Lozano, asked if he could volunteer to clean the bathrooms. Just want to help out, man. Even people who had never set foot in the gym stopped by with envelopes of cash. No names, no questions, just folded up bills and a short, whispered, "Thank you." But not everyone welcomed the shift. Donovan came out one morning to find "Keep your mouth shut" spray painted across the side of his garage in red. Later that night, Kendra noticed 2 calls with no caller ID. The third time, someone finally spoke. "You're gonna get someone hurt if you keep running your mouth." Donovan filed a police report. No one followed up. Still, he didn't back down. A week after the press conference, he got a call from Deputy Chief Pamela Greer. She sounded tense. "Donovan, I'd like to meet. Privately. No cameras?" he asked. "No cameras," she replied. They met at a local diner, one of those places with vinyl booths and too many photos on the wall. She was already there, sipping coffee, eyes scanning the room. "I'll be honest with you," she said as he sat down. "The department's under pressure. Real pressure." Donovan stayed silent. She continued. "We've got officers demanding Halverson's reinstatement. Others want him fired. The chief's caught between. And the mayor? He's losing patience." Donovan folded his hands. "You didn't call me here to talk about politics." "No," she said. "I called you because this town is choosing sides. And you've got a lot more people listening to you than he does." He looked at her. "Then what are you asking me for?" "Time. Space. Let the internal process work. The investigation's ongoing. We're combing through everything." "You've had your footage," Donovan said, voice low. "You had it the night it happened. You sat on it." "I didn't. The department did. And now my daughter flinches when someone knocks on the door." Pamela sat back. "What do you want?" "I want your officer charged. I want him stripped of his badge. And I want someone to say out loud that what he did was wrong." She didn't speak for a long time. Then, "I can't promise all of that." Donovan nodded once. "Then I won't be quiet." When he stood, she reached into her bag and slid a folded paper across the table. "What's this?" "A file," she said. "Anonymous complaints. Halverson's name comes up more than once." He looked down at the folder, then back at her. She didn't say anything else, just sipped her coffee. Back home, Donovan showed Kendra the file. 3 complaints in the last 2 years, she said, reading. All young, all black, all Latino, all dismissed. Until now, Donovan said. She looked at him. What are you going to do? He took a breath. We go louder. But Brett wasn't done, and neither was the truth. The more people listened to Donovan, the more others started to speak. But the louder the truth got, the uglier things became. One morning, Tiana's school counselor called. She should stay home today, the woman said, voice tight. We've had a couple threats come through. Nothing specific, but enough to take seriously. Kendra hung up and looked across the kitchen table at her daughter, still eating cereal with her left hand. Tiana's sling was off now, but she still winced when she moved her elbow too fast. Mom, am I in trouble? No, baby, Kendra said. Some folks are just scared of hearing the truth. That's not your fault. Tiana looked down. I didn't ask for any of this. I know, but now that it's here, we're not backing down. That same day, Donovan found a man parked across from the gym, engine running. Not a student, not a parent, just sitting there, watching. When Donovan walked toward the car, the man rolled up his window and drove off. Later that evening, someone slipped an envelope under the gym door. No return address, no handwriting, just one printed photo inside, a picture of Tiana walking out of school, circled in red marker. Kendra wanted to call the police again. Donovan didn't even bother. He set up cameras, told his gym staff to walk kids to their cars, and started showing up 15 minutes early to every school pickup. But the final shove came from someone unexpected. Tiana had been quiet all week. She didn't complain. She didn't cry. She just kept watching her parents watch her. One night, Donovan came home to find her sitting in the living room, holding his old GoPro. It was recording. What are you doing, T? She didn't look away from the lens. I have something to say. He sat beside her. She pressed record again. My name is Tiana Monroe. I'm 13 years old. I had my arm broken by a police officer who thought I looked suspicious. I didn't resist. I didn't yell. I didn't even know what I did wrong. She took a breath. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I just want to go back to walking home without being scared. I want to know that I matter enough for people to say what he did was wrong. That's it. Then she ended the video and handed it to her dad. You think anyone will care? He smiled softly. I think they already do. Donovan posted the clip that night. Just raw footage. No hashtags, no music. Just his daughter, speaking for herself. The next morning, it had 500,000 views. Local news ran it. Then national. Then international. Messages flooded their inbox. Support from other families, teachers, even former officers. But one message stood out. It came from a man named Jordan Cates, a Modesto patrol officer. He didn't send it publicly. It was a direct message, just 5 lines long. I was there the day Halverson got hired. I've seen how he works. Your daughter's not the first. The department's buried worse. If you're serious, I'll talk. Donovan didn't hesitate. He set up a meeting the next day at a quiet corner table in a library outside of town. Jordan arrived in plain clothes. Baseball cap, hoodie, face tight with nerves. He didn't shake hands. Just sat and began talking. 3 years ago, Halverson was flagged for excessive force twice. One kid ended up with a concussion. Another had bruised ribs. Neither report made it past internal review. Why not? Donovan asked. Jordan looked up. Because they disappeared, and the families didn't push it. Some didn't even know the full report existed. They were told it was standard. I only found out because I was on desk duty one week and read the wrong file. Donovan leaned in. And what about now? Jordan glanced around. I'll talk, but I need to know you're serious about blowing this open. I'm not here for show. Jordan nodded slowly. Then I'll get you what you need. But one more surprise was still waiting, and this time it came from inside the department. Jordan kept his word. 2 days after their meeting, he showed up at Donovan's gym with a flash drive tucked inside the lining of his jacket. He didn't speak to anyone, just handed Donovan the drive in a firm grip and said, Don't call me. Don't tag me. Just use it right. Donovan nodded. You sure you're ready for what comes next? I've been sick over it for a long time, Jordan said. Let the truth do what it does. Donovan didn't waste time. That night, he sat at the dining table with Kendra and Nicolette, laptop open, footage loading. Tiana had gone to bed early, worn out after therapy. There were 4 files. The first was from a dash cam 3 years ago. Halverson slamming a teenage boy onto a squad car hood during a routine traffic stop. The boy was crying. He wasn't even the driver. The second was an edited body cam clip labeled Final Report, next to the raw footage labeled Original. The comparison showed how parts had been trimmed, moments where Halverson shouted, yanked, or made threats. Kendra whispered, "They doctored it." Nicolette stared. "They've been doing this for years." The third video showed Halverson at a training seminar, mocking protesters, laughing, making offhand comments that weren't just offensive, they were deliberate. The fourth file was a memo, internal complaints, buried. 2 officers who tried to report him had been reassigned. 1 eventually quit. Donovan closed the laptop. "We release all of it. Nothing blurred, nothing redacted." Nicolette leaned forward. "You're sure? This is going to tear through the department." He looked at her. "Then let it tear." The next morning, Nicolette dropped the story. Not just the footage, she published the full article. The department knew. A pattern of violence and silence inside Modesto PD. She timed the post for 6 a.m. By noon, it was trending across California. People were sharing it faster than she could count. Local reporters came swarming back to the gym. National outlets called non-stop. City Hall went into emergency meetings. That same day, the district attorney held a press conference. "We are formally charging Officer Brett Halverson with aggravated assault, falsifying public records, and obstruction of justice. He has been taken into custody and is no longer employed by the Modesto Police Department." Donovan watched the live broadcast from the gym's front desk, arms folded. He didn't smile, didn't flinch. It wasn't over. A week later, Donovan was invited to speak at a town hall meeting. The room was packed. Community members, students, officers, teachers. Elected officials sat along the back wall, tight-lipped. He stood behind the mic, calm and grounded. "This isn't about a single officer. It's about the system that protected him. It's about the people who watched him hurt kids and said nothing. It's about the silence we're taught to live with." He scanned the room, found Jordan sitting alone near the back. Their eyes met. "This can't be the end of the story. My daughter shouldn't be a footnote in your training manual. She should be a reminder that the people you swear to protect are watching, and we're not afraid to speak anymore." Applause broke out. Not polite, not cautious. Real. The police chief resigned 2 days later. The city council launched a full audit of the department's internal affairs process. A civil rights organization announced they were opening a Modesto office to handle local cases. And Halverson? He sat in county jail awaiting trial. At home, Tiana still moved a little slower than she used to. Her physical therapy sessions helped, but the stiffness in her arm was a reminder she'd carry for a while. One evening, Donovan found her in the backyard, shadowboxing with her left hand. "You switching hands on me now?" he asked, grinning. She smirked. "Trying to keep you guessing?" He walked over and held up his palms. "Show me what you've got." She threw a few light jabs. He caught them with ease. "Not bad," he said. "But keep your balance." "I am," she said. "I've just never had to fight with one arm before." He nodded. "Sometimes that's all it takes." But Donovan wasn't after a badge. He was after something bigger. 3 months later, the Monroe home felt different. Not quieter, just steadier. Tiana was back at school full-time, and though her routine had changed, no more walking alone, fewer sleepovers, more check-ins, her spirit had started to return. She laughed again. She cracked jokes at dinner. She spent hours drawing in her sketchbook, something she hadn't touched since the hospital. The sling was gone. The physical therapy was working. Her right arm was still stiff in the mornings, but the doctors said she'd get most of her range back. The scar near her elbow, though, would stay. "Battle mark," she called it one day, tugging her sleeve up to show a friend. Donovan watched from the hallway. He didn't interrupt. He just listened. At the gym, things had shifted too. They added new programs, self-defense classes for girls, legal rights workshops, after-school study hours. Kendra helped organize them, often juggling her job with late-night planning meetings. Volunteers came and went, but the core stayed strong. Donovan renamed the gym the Monroe Center, not after himself, after Tiana. He hung a mural on the far wall, a painting donated by a former student who now worked in LA. It showed a young girl standing on a cracked sidewalk, hoodie draped over her shoulder, a sliver of light coming down from above. Not hopeful, not heroic, just real. Every kid who walked into that building saw it. One afternoon, Tiana walked into the gym and found her father working the heavy bag alone. Sweat dripped from his temple. He hadn't been in the ring for months, but his rhythm was still there, controlled, focused, efficient. "You training for something?" she asked. He didn't look up. "Just shaking off rust." She walked over and leaned against the ropes. "You ever think about going back in? Like, for real?" He paused, lowered his gloves. "No. I had my fights." Tiana tilted her head. "You sure? You kind of miss it." He looked over, smiling. "Maybe. But now I get to teach the good ones how not to end up with hands like mine." He held up his knuckles. "Scarred, stiff, decades of fights written in bone." Tiana nodded. "Still looks cool." That night at dinner, she asked a question they hadn't heard in months. "Can I walk to school again?" Kendra paused. "By yourself?" "No," Tiana said. "With friends." "The long way." Donovan and Kendra exchanged a glance. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even worry. It was something quieter. The kind of hesitation that lives inside parents who've already seen too much. "You sure you're ready?" Donovan asked. Tiana nodded. "I don't want to be scared of a sidewalk." He smiled. "Then go own it." They didn't make a big deal of it. No cameras, no speeches. Just a quiet morning. She left with her backpack, walked with 2 friends from school. They didn't wear matching hoodies or carry signs. But when they passed the corner where it happened, all 3 of them stopped. Tiana looked down at the concrete, then looked up, and walked on. At the gym that afternoon, a new kid came in. A 5th grader named Eli, small for his age, eyes wide with nerves. Donovan knelt beside him. "You ever been in a gym before?" Eli shook his head. "You scared?" "A little," Donovan nodded. "That's okay. First time I stepped in a ring, I couldn't breathe." The boy looked up. "Did you get beat up?" "Not that day," Donovan said. "But later?" "Yeah, more than once." "Why'd you come back?" Donovan smiled. "Because I learned something." "What?" He looked over at the mural. "Doesn't matter how strong you are. What matters is what you do after you get hurt." He stood and clapped a hand on Eli's shoulder. "Let's get to work." That night, as the gym lights dimmed and the front door locked, Donovan sat in his office with a notepad open. On the top line, he wrote, "Justice doesn't end when someone's punished. It begins when people stop being afraid." Then he turned off the light. Because justice isn't about one person falling, it's about making sure the next kid doesn't.